Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your break to recover from that game of Hearthstone we just witnessed between Jarla and Bunnyhoppor. We've got plenty more where that came from, though, because Jarla, although having won one game, this is best of five, which means there's a couple more to win before he is done. And Bunnyhoppor having his priest and his rogue once again, and mage to go up against Jarla's druid and mage overall. Are there any must-win matchups here, Sol? Are there any struggling decks you might think are the hurdles either of these players are going to have to get over?
Series, that would be incredible. And you missed that all because I was muted. I do apologize.
You should apologize. I accepted this once, but let's get into this game. Jarla on the mage, Bunnyhoppor on that priest, and Jarla, another player who's bringing the old Antonidas to his mage list. I think, at a quick glance, it looks almost the same as Psycho's, maybe exactly the same.
Yeah, it does. I believe you are correct. Jarla just holding on to Wandmaker here in the opener.
Bunnyhoppor, on the other hand, doesn't have a bad few options himself. Did have the Pyro and the Wave of Apathy, but Sethic Veilweaver being kept not too much of a surprise, and a Wandmaker for himself as well, which means at least there is a couple of options for early game plays. So I do think some of the, apart from the extreme, evocation, craziness, super early giants, one of the strongest openings I see from this major really are just the tempo openings of just playing minions turn after turn. Even now, I wouldn't be too upset to see Jarla calling one of these out.
Yeah, it's kind of what we were talking about when we were discussing like the discrepancy in strategies versus Demon Hunter, right? Where Alan was saying this was the kind of hand that you wanted, whereas Orange was more on the side of the Sorcerer's Apprentice hand. Where Alan was saying, spell damage minion into cram session. Like that's kind of the business that you need in this early game to be able to be beating Demon Hunter. It's definitely like of comparable power in a lot of matchups to just even the nuttiest Sorcerer's Apprentice openings. Because if you do then follow this up with a cram session, you're in pretty serious business. But Bunny, love this choice from him just to throw out the Sethic on curve. Actually very hard to deal with from an empty board mage.
Right.
There's quite a lot of resources that need to be thrown out just to deal with this one card. And if it does stick, which it's likely to, the curve out into Apotheosis is a very, very big deal.
And that was a tough thing for me. Obviously, you can't just say, oh, my opponent's always going to Sethic on 2. But I like keeping hold of a coin as much as the next player, but for me, it just could have been Astromancer into 2-drop X, and that would have looked very, very powerful regardless of what Bunnyhoppor did. He does have the option now of coining out the Arcane Breath, but he just wouldn't do enough without the spell damage, so he's just going to hold on for that next turn.
I would imagine with that much spell damage in hand and the promise of Cram Session at some point, that makes holding coin kind of appealing, so you can pair that together quickly and cycle through your deck. And then also, there's that Antonidas tech that we saw put in some work for Psycho, which, if Jarla can super greed the coin and carry it all the way into the late game, then that becomes an incredibly useful resource with the Antonidas later on as well.
It does worry me, and like I say, I've seen Mage do incredible things in the late game, right, with saving some resources. But it's just a little bit scary when you let Priest get bored before you have anything too impactful to do.
Priests never get bored, Raven. They're having way too much fun stealing all your stuff every time.
Twilight Drake for just the uncurved play. Oh no. Okay. Going for the evasive worm is more of a response play later on and not going for the curve play. I guess he does have the Apotheosis next turn along with an Inner Fire, potentially, so there are next turn options for Bunnyhoppor regardless, if these minions live.
Bunny just giving up his Sethic to say to the opponent, you are welcome to ping this turn if you would like to.
It's almost maybe not even surprisingly, but even in this matchup, it seems to be the battle of who's going to take the game the slowest. Because yes, Bunnyhopper's played minions out, but like you said, he's not gone aggressive with the Apotheosis. He's letting his Sethic just get pinged off, saying, well, if Jarla wants to ping, that makes the game even slower, which might benefit Bunnyhopper. But Jarla's also gone a lot slower than he could have. He could have had effectively a turn 1, 2, 3 curve, actually, looking at the hand.
Right. Yeah, the lack of Apotheosis last turn does surprise me. Like, there's not even a natural devolving missiles in Jarla's list, right? That you'd have to be scared of in that position.
But the Sethic didn't die, so maybe Bunnyhopper just knew.
He's just absolutely mind games him, yeah. That's the question now. Has Jarla just got the read? Like, oh, he doesn't actually have anything to do with the Sethic. He just played it out as a river croc.
What if? Is this a wave of apathy turn? Is that madness?
What? Why do you... What? Why do you want to do that?
Because value trades.
Ah, I see.
I mean, these two Astromancers are going to do a reasonable chunk of damage, whichever way you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And if he just straight up trades now, then the Sethic is yet again weak to a ping.
Well, you could just Inner Fire, right, to protect the Sethic trade, so it ends as a 4-2 instead. Like Inner Fire on the Astromancer. Yeah, kind of like this. You always hit the 0 mana silence here. Oh, so close. Oh, it was almost the God Call. All right. Business time, Raven.
Somewhere. Arek's just woken up. He's like, okay, well, there's an apprentice there, evocation in hand. Let's go.
Is that? I gaze into the night sky and I see the apprentice evocation signal.
At least it's not the highest Baron Darek signal.
Yeah, no one wants to see that.
It's just like weirdly the evasive worm on curve trade plan here, but it is only trading into a 1-3, so it doesn't quite feel as powerful as it could do. This is much more realistic here from Bunnyhoppor.
Agreed, yeah. Cobalt Spellkin ends up being a lot more effective here. Yeah, agree with this as well. Spell damage is quite scary. So does Jarla go? Or, I mean, so this is a possible explanation for, you know, the speed that Jarla's would look to progress the game at. When you have Antonidas in hand, this is something that, you know, I did see from some of the specialist matchups in Americas where this is being run as a tech card. You actually have a ton of inevitability in a lot of matchups if you've just already drawn Antonidas, because the amount of fireballs this deck specifically can generate with Antonidas.
Right?
Yeah, if your opponent doesn't pressure you, like, you are just in business. So with the Antonidas already in hand, Jarla might just felt very, very secure, going incredibly slowly here, but he is just going to commit to the more standard-looking apprentice evocation line here.
Yeah, it does open up the option, though. You are right. Like, and I do wonder now. There is even Coin Potion.
Coin Potion. I knew you were going to say it. Yeah.
But speaking of Antonidas, you get a 1-mana apprentice and another Violet Spellwing for another Arcane Missiles. Not the craziest potion I've suggested, mainly because I've suggested a lot of stupid ones before.
Yeah. The problem is, like, you're already using up all of your cheap spells this turn, right? And then you would strand not only the Antonidas, but also a Cyclone in your hand without really having any ability to get more cheap spells anytime soon. So I think it just has to end up being the Cyclone turn.
Also, there's some level of chance that this Sorcerer's Apprentice just doesn't die. There's nothing on Bunnyhopper's side of the board. There aren't that many direct removal options for Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah. Yeah, it had a real chance of sticking for sure.
Again, as your Explorer just a bit of a hidden gem in this deck. Not that you play it, but that you often get hold of it as just a nice little bonus of not only the spell damage extra with +2, but discovering a dragon, super powerful as well.
Yep. Also, it is a dragon itself, which means, generated arcane breaths are very, very powerful, or if you just naturally play them in your deck as well, as some people do, with the extra dragon package of the orange list, Kobold Spellkins. A lot of the spell damage minions do have weird niche upsides that you don't appreciate first until you get deeper into the deck. Like, it's the elemental tag on Mana Reservoir and Steward, for example, is actually weirdly relevant sometimes when you've got an elemental allies. You can actually get the card drawer afterwards.
And even just the health on the reservoir as well is pretty huge, because you can get it for that little bit cheaper, and you're not bothered about the aggressive stats. You want the spell damage for all the combinations and synergy you actually have. Big arcane missiles coming down, clearing up the evasive worm. Means Jarla can just continue to just put on bits of pressure, nothing too big yet. But now we're seeing multiple one-cost spells, Antonidas still chilling in the hand, and then even just this Caligos to have an extra late-game option right now.
Yeah. Looking in pretty good shape. Actually has a decent opportunity to stick this Azir Explorer as well. For persistent spell damage, not that he can take advantage of it right now.
What I do wonder, and maybe I'll just have to ask Jarla afterwards, after this weekend, is this hand helped Jarla, I think, go for this slightly slower game plan because of the Antonidas. I do wonder what would have happened if he had an Antonidas and a Mana Giant. And just see, just to see if he tried to go off with a Mana Giant or if he kept with the slightly slower game plan or not. So just would have been interesting, because I just don't know.
I think he'd have done it loosely the same, right? Because the Apprentice evocation turn that he had still would have been massively discounting his Mana Giant, right? He just potentially could have had the Nate in play right now instead of
like
this
a
stuff.
Giant into an Antonidas kind of play.
Yeah. I think it would have been largely the same thing. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Put it straight in my veins. Used to dump one card first. That's drawing 3 right now.
Which card, though? Because, What is devolving just fine? Yeah, Thanks, Gil.
I think it's Flame Ward, right? Yeah, this makes the most sense to me.
It just depends what Jarla's expecting to do with the rest of the turn, right? And with the rest of his mana. If you are happy using 3, absolutely agree. The Flame Ward is the easy one, just as a throwaway card.
Why can't we hold all this value?
The Devolving would make some of these trades pretty good.
I think now it almost has to be the Devolving. Every other card, Twin Spell, replaces itself, replaces itself, replaces itself.
Yeah, like Devolving and the Spellwing just to fill out the mana.
Yeah. You could Ray. Guess it's fine.
I mean, he has enough, right? He has enough 1-mana spells, so he can, I don't want to say throw away, but liberally use some of these Ray of Frost he has.
Yeah, he has enough, but you can never describe him as having too many, because as soon as he draws second Apprentice, he can have infinite 1-mana spells in hand space allowing, and they all turn into fireballs.
Priest doesn't really have a good way to stay healthy versus infinite fireballs.
Most classes don't, no.
And by infinite, I mean,
yeah,
5 plus.
It's kind of an innate property of the word infinite that it would be quite hard to sustain against. Yeah.
You know what I meant. Renew helps. And do you think, I mean, it's not too much of a stretch, but do you think Bunnyhopper's almost expecting an Antonidas build-up? Because it's not often you're in this position against a mage, I say late in the game, turn 8, but late in the game with this many cards in hand.
I mean, he'll definitely know what's up. Like, he'll know how the matchup is different. Like, even if he hasn't tested it specifically, or if he didn't see any of the Americas iterations where it happened, like, he's a smart enough guy and a good enough Hearthstone player to be able to work out what just one Antonidas added to Tempo Mage means in terms of like the way the matchup pans out in the late game.
There is now also Chemvala options though as well.
But good sequencing on the previous turn from Bunny, by the way, while we were talking. He checked first for Counterspell, then added in an additional check for the Spellbender as well before committing to the full clear with the Firebrand. Good stuff.
Evocation discovered for Jarla. Which means even though he can go off with a Chemvala, the downside was he uses spells, right? But now with the evocation, it means he has access to even more going forward, so it's not too much of a downside anymore.
Works against me.
On top of all of this mess, by the way, as good as this looks from Jarla, as he's just, happily progressing his game plan towards a million fireballs with his Antonidas, let's not forget there's 2 primes still remaining in his deck as well that he's going to be drawing at some point.
That is true. I did actually... Okay. I did wonder there how good the Learn Draconic was. But, wow. The Learn Draconic was versus a counterspell that turn instead.
Wait, what did he do? Oh, so he went Learn Draconic, Devolving, Spellwing, and you're saying spend that 3 on the counterspell instead?
Yeah. I understand the downsides. Obviously, he gets to play the Devolving and start adding to this Learn Draconic as well. But I think the counterspell would have, even if it causes Bunnyhoppor to just burn a more throwaway card, it still makes him spend mana, and he has a card that he can feel just to throw away, right? Or he has to at least just consider the secrets.
Right.
Your mind is not your own.
Good steal there from Bunnyhoppor. Taking the Chemvala and clean up this board very nicely.
Dance.
Well, speak of the devil. Speak of the demon, I guess, in this case.
Yep.
Warriors of the frozen wastes, rise up!
Second Caligo, as you do.
Yeah, okay, fine. Seems good. It's the elemental allies we've been talking about. A pretty tame prime so far overall, though.
Does have another missiles, though, if he wants to try and clear up this Chemvala.
Yeah, it feels that way. Just kind of rip second missiles. Could also go Ray, because you have the spell damage. Just guaranteed clear instead, just to make sure nothing messy happens.
It's probably, again, I really want to use the word safe in this game, because safe is a very strange word. But it feels like the more consistent way to clear this off, and less problems that could occur afterwards, right?
I like how I've just beaten that out of you, because I hate safe versus risky discussions so much.
I will throw them in now and again just to frustrate you, though.
I know.
Ha! Bunnyhoppor's like, nice try. I've just got a Chemvala in hand now.
This game's just heading back towards nonsense, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's where it's going.
A simple spell.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this is the astronauts. Is this game nonsense? Always was.
Always was. Yeah.
You don't pick the ones.
Yup. Nope. That definitely fits the bill. That sounds about right.
Quickly.
Triple renew from the BFFs, Falcon and Wandmaker. Some Shadow Word Ruin. Pretty effective answer to Mana Giants if Conjurer's Calling does end up being dropped on the Mana Giant. Remember, Jarla does play 1 natural copy of the Conjurer's Calling.
And honestly, at this rate, even just Power of Creations and so on, because who knows? At this point in the game, let's be honest. A box, maybe. The other Solarian, so on.
So we've got to keep an eye on these side quests now as well, with 3 out of 8 on the Learn Draconic, and currently not active at all on the Elemental Allies. Which means Jarla does have some tempo options here to turn his spells into a 6/6 if he would like to.
And I think outside of a generated one, it is 2 Mana Giants and a Cyclone, right, left in the deck that can generate the Elemental?
Yes, both Spellwings have gone, Chemvala's gone. So yeah, 1 Cyclone, 2 Mana Giants. Yep. There is
think about
1 Primordial Studies as well, which, as we were discussing earlier, quite often gives you an elemental.
Oh, sure. Yep. Oh, just going to go for a polymorph here.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about, right? Tempo play that like uses some reactive cards and turns them into something proactive by using mana to generate a 6/6 here instead. This is the kind of play I was talking about. I like this a lot.
It's pretty clean. When you look at the ping as well,
Yeah.
it's actually just a very clean turn, isn't it? If
Yep.
you make a few of those in a game, you're probably looking pretty good.
Right. Because he's just made like 1 proactive threat out of some very reactive cards, and now he can go proactive threat again with Kalagos into proactive threat again with Kalagos. Like he can just keep going for a very long time now on the front foot.
And all the while reducing his hand size down, which normally sounds bad, but not if you have an evocation in hand.
Yes, absolutely.
Or is it just me?
Death, nice option there.
Yep.
Means you can
It's
save
very
the
nice.
rune for much more
You
AoE
don't
big
pick
threat
the
removal.
one, silly.
Picks up another renew. Oh my god, he actually did. I can't believe that worked. Okay.
Is this another renew? Oh, it was.
No, that doesn't work anymore, Raven. That doesn't work. They patched that out. No more renew Jackson.
Well, someone tell Bunnyhoppor that because I don't think he got the note.
No, fair enough. So yeah, this Shambhala from the Raised Dead is something that Jarla wouldn't have necessarily been accounting for, because I was kind of describing how he would, intend to stay on the front foot here with the amount of pressure he has. The Shambhala turn was probably one of the few things that Bunny's deck was capable of that could really aggressively swing the board state that hard that turn.
Yeah, and honestly, I hope Lorinda's paying attention because he is keeping a lot of the stats for this, and I'm worried that he might mark last game up as a priest mirror and this one up as a mage mirror at this point. Because although the portraits aren't looking similar, the cards on board definitely are.
Yeah. So it's just Kalagos number 1, right? Unless Jarla sees something magical.
All in
Well, if it's not Kalagos, then it's Jarla getting something very specific from one thief or intellect.
Those are all extremely unpleasant.
works against me.
Counter's not the end of the world. Helps him stick the Malagos.
Yeah, but it's the Shambhala potentially running wild on the other side of the board that's the terrifying thing, right?
Yeah. Also, just trade into Galakron might be the time.
Yeah, it's very fair. Yeah, trade Galakron does look very clean. The hand right now doesn't quite support the Shambhala pop-off. It's just a little bit awkward. The spell usage is just really inefficient.
Yeah, and this is nice as well because the One Maker helps Bunnyhoppor work out what this secret is or is not. So the One Maker attack to the face solves a few questions. The Galakron then is always safe. The Shambhala now knows it's not Vaporize or another Flame Ward as well. So a lot of knowledge there gained from Bunnyhoppor as well as clearing up the threats from Jarla.
Elemental number 1. Drawn for Jarla. Honestly, those 3 spell draws are actually starting to look quite crucial because Jarla has slowly but surely burned through a lot of his Antonidas fuel the longer the game has gone on.
Yeah, and now, because in a weird way, because he's lost both to this Shambhala, it's a little bit hard for Jarla to even make Antonidas as good because there's a chance that he plays Antonidas, does these little spells, and then takes so much damage, he doesn't have time to cast like 5 fireballs, right? He just dies if that's the case. And if fireballs end up having to be removal, then does the long game actually suit Jarla, or does that just make Bunnyhoppor win eventually? It's really tough to manage here.
Font of Power, find yourself a keeper. Tome of Intellect, find something to keep as well. I suspect it's just Fireball from there. He's going to go Fireball Combustion instead, get the clear.
Yeah.
Alright, seems fair. See, this, yeah, it's probably better than a random secret from Tome. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Just clears up most of the board. And like I said, Jarla wants to set up this Antonidas turns or Fireball turns without having to worry about just getting beaten up by a board of 5/5s, right?
Yeah, and crucially, Shambhala there is Elemental number 2 for allies next turn. So Jarla will get all the card draw. Which actually, right now, the way his deck is stacked, almost guarantees the Conjurer's Calling draw. He has Primordial Studies, Ray of Frost, Arcane Intellect, Conjurer's Calling left. That's all of the spells left in his deck. Everything else is minions.
It is funny, isn't it, the way some of these cards are hidden gems, as discovered. We talked a little bit about it as your Explorer early on, but also Elemental Allies is when it goes off, jeez.
Yeah.
It just shouldn't be allowed, should it? Like, you know, that's what it feels like, right? You see, wait, they've just drawn all their good cards.
Frost Nova into the counter spell. Bunny now gonna rip the goods. Presses Hero Power first, just to be a good little boy with his sequencing. Rips the Wave of Apathy, steals the Giant. It's now guaranteed. Draw every spell in his deck from the Shambhala.
Is it cold?
He gets Primordial Studies, Ray of Frost, Conjurer's Calling.
Ah, wrong order.
What a
Sort
scrub.
yourself out, please, Sol.
Yeah, sorry.
Jarla. He's just digging for that card right now to try and dig him out of this mess.
Yeah, it's exactly what he needs. So he does now have, the reason I was focused on saying it guarantees the Conjurer's Calling draw is that he now has Kalagos Conjurer's Calling as like a bare minimum baseline play on any given turn from this point onwards, which is obviously absurdly powerful.
Hold on a second, though.
Mm-hmm.
The plan's coming together, so I might finally see the dream.
Oh, the Mali missiles? Okay. Yeah.
The Jarla just needs a few more Primordial Studies, and we can get there.
Yeah, that's definitely his primary source of dealing damage with this hand, is the Malagos and the Arcane missiles.
Agreed. I'm glad we're on the same wavelength there.
It's getting cheaper, Raven. It's getting cheaper.
Look, it's happening. Do you have an apprentice left?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
5 cards remaining. Cyclone, Apprentice, Firebrand, Raz, Second Manager.
He's also potentially setting up for a huge Raz if we can stick this Malagos.
If he just keeps getting, like, just finds another couple of studies from somewhere. Yeah.
Now there's just 2 Murazons in Bunnyhoppor's hand.
Yep.
This could also be... Oh, not quite. I was looking if actually the Soul Mirror would be enough, but it doesn't actually deal with the Shambhala, does it? Not even with help from another card.
This Murazon plays, like, infinite cards. Plays a Shambhala. Yeah, plays Shambhala, Arcane Missile, Ray of Frost, Ray of Frost.
I mean, just make Bunnyhoppor a hunter at this point, may as well.
Yeah,
just picks it up.
Studies as well.
Why has Bunnyhoppor had 3 Shenvalas this game? Why? He's playing Priest!
Okay. So now for Jarla, is it time for a cold one with the boys?
I feel like these players just playing an alternate game mode right now.
realize I should probably explain that. I know it's like become one with the Void or something, but every time Solarian Prime comes into play, I just hear cold one with the boys.
Explosive trap does look hot to me, though. Oh! Mega Flames!
The mana giant lives!
What a god!
What? 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 Hello? Stop! Just stop! What is Hearthstone? What happened to our game, Raven?
Out of combat.
I lost track about 8 turns ago, so I'll never mind now. I'm just, whatever at this point.
Hearthstone! Why are you like
I told
this?
you, they've just queued an alternate game mode. How are we supposed to cast this?
I don't know. Like, what's happened? Where's
Both
everything
players
gone?
Just have some Hearthstone cards. They have
Like
to try and win.
What's happened to this Antonidas? This was going to win the game, and now it's just dead. It's just a garbage 7-drop in his hand that he can't do anything with. Because his Sorcerer's Apprentice just vanished because Puzzlebox said so. Like, what? What are we supposed to do?
I don't know. I'm just not outside like, oh, what's something cool to say? It doesn't exist because we're not prepared for these scenarios. It's just a gyrocopter sat there like, yeah, if you can't clear this, you're dead. And now I just wonder, does Bunnyhoppor respond in a... Okay, it's just gonna Soul Mirror.
I mean, it's a pretty insane Soul Mirror, isn't it?
My description or thought of insanity has changed quite a lot over the course of this series so far, Sottle.
That is...
This feels tame, if I'm honest.
Hmm.
He's one mana away from that Holy Nova just being brutal.
Oh, interesting. So he trades once, goes into the 5/5, and then just smites something or Draconic Studies. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this looks good.
Seems good.
Deathwing,
Deathwing,
yeah,
why not?
why
every
not?
Every game needs a Deathwing now. That's
Yep.
just the rules.
Gonna apotheosis it and get true revenge. Bunnyhopper's plan all along.
Time is running out.
I joked about, oh, you know, Bunnyhoppor, make him a hunter. No, Jarla's like, no, I'll take the hunter cards for this game, thank you. He's got the secret. Now, can Jarla get this Malaguts activated somehow?
We're back on this train, are we?
In a more reasonable fashion,
in
Raz
due
plus spell damage looks okay. There is also just Conjurer's Call in for this 7/4. There's options, basically. That's what I'm getting at. There's
Yeah.
options.
As I mentioned many turns ago, there is... Actually, I feel like it was only like 3 turns ago, but it seems like a long time ago at this point. He always does have Caligos Conjurer's Calling available as like a baseline option.
The fate of the world hangs in the
Which
balance.
seems to be where he's gone. Ooh. Those are some pretty appealing removal options, though. Flame Strike is kind of nuts. Just leaves up a 4/1?
I did wonder whether he was actually going to go a different way and go for Firebrand Conjurer's Call in instead. But does he attack?
Oh, the Murazond! The counter Murazond. This has to just be illegal, right? 4/12, free Flame Strike, and you get to cast your next spell for free as well?
What about if he Karges first? Karges the Caligos or something?
Okay. I'm into that.
Why not? Just get another Caligos.
Yeah. I mean, the Caligos lives through your Murazond, so you don't necessarily have to do it in that order, but there's no real like ordering considerations, I guess. The weird part is the secret. I don't quite know how much information Bunny has on what that secret is, but like the Murazond is just nutty here, right? It has to be.
Yep.
The fate of the world hangs in the balance. Time is running out.
Well, he gets the spell for free. None of the spells are that good. I guess Nova to stop the ping. Oh, okay, gonna go for smite as well. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Welp.
How and when exactly did this go so wrong for Jarla? It looked so free for so long when he was just hoarding Antonidas spells, and somehow he just has 0 fireballs.
And what? Realistically,
All
one
in
castable
due
spell
time.
with that Antonidas?
Yep. I mean, I don't see it. Like, what do any of these cards do to get you back onto this board? It just doesn't happen, right?
Tome of Intellect into box.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. That's the answer.
Okay.
I'm
then you
half
might as
joking,
well,
but
like-
half being serious.
You might as well, like, Antonidas Tome of Intellect, then, and get a fireball and a
Sure.
puzzle box, since you can't box this turn anyway.
Why not?
All in due time.
That's the problem, right? Like, Power of Creation, I'm even thinking of some of the better outcomes, and they still kind of just get farmed by what's already on board for Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah. If you get, like, double Gyrocopter yourself, I guess you can kill the Caligos? Have no board against an 8/8? Is that good? Probably not.
Shadowwood. Ruin after the attack, and then just use the Wave of Apathy to steal the 0/6. Oh no, he'd steal that anyway. I don't know, I'm more trying to think of plays that lose Bunnyhoppor this game. I
was
think
gonna
he's so
say.
far ahead.
That might actually be the nuts low play this turn, Raven. Like, that's actually quite impressive.
So I think he's got a read on this. Is this always explosive now as far as Bunnyhopper's concerned? I think so.
I think it's just getting you up in the game, right?
That's what I
Jarla
mean. Like, I think
Like,
it's always
Jarla fatigues for
explosive.
3. If these attacks go through, Bunny just has lethals. I don't think there's
Right.
any conceivable world where you don't at least try it. Bunny, you've won. You've won. This is like strictly
Stop playing
BM at this point. Yeah.
Whew, God. That is going to be game number 2. It felt like game number 10. And this series is not even over yet. There is just one-on-one here. Bunnyhoppor taking it to a pretty long game there. Jarla, again, like you said, the plan was there and the plan looked good. It's just things happened and it all went wrong very suddenly off the back of the box and everything else. So a really weird game, and honestly, so far a very strange series. But you can see that these two players are just having to really push themselves in how to just manage some of these games of Hearthstone, right? Like, they aren't normal games you'd run into day in, day out of ladder. Like,
Yeah.
These are really weird games. And these players are bringing decks that help with that. The Rogue from Bunnyhoppor, Mage in general can get to some weird places. So this is partly their choice, but you do have to think, with just 2 games done and both players are just 1-1 now, there's a lot of mental fatigue, I imagine, coming into the rest of these games, because those were hard to pilot from both sides.
They were, yeah, for sure. I think like both of these players might just feel like they need a nice, refreshing zoo mirror or something at this point. Certainly we do. But yeah, the games were nonsense. But that one in particular, like, I just completely lost track of it. Like, he was setting up for, he used his first apprentice like quite liberally on an evocation in the early game, which seemed fine. And then it just really seemed like a large amount of the game was don't be behind, like maintain parity, wait for the second apprentice to be drawn, and then we can go off with the Antonidas for, 8, 9, 10 fireballs. The sky's the limit at that point. But then Puzzle Box happens, and suddenly he just doesn't have any of that stuff anymore,
Right.
because it burns the remaining cards in his deck and plot twists and messes everything up, and he just doesn't have a game plan anymore. So it's really like hard to come up with anything too insightful on the way those things go. But it does mean that now both priests have found their way out of the series, and it's now Bunnyhoppor's turn to have a go on the tempo match.
Yeah, and Jarla will be joining that, as well as this is going to be a Mage Mirror. So I'm not going to say, I nearly said that, well, You can't get another crazy one
On
again,
the
right?
wrong
Because
side, Jaina.
the interactions aren't there. Oh wait, they're both playing mage. Yes, they are. So there is still a chance that we're going to get another crazy game. Jarla, staying hydrated. Do not blame him whatsoever. This opening hand, there's a lot to be discussed about mage, isn't there? So getting back to more serious Hearthstone land.
Yeah.
But what do you make of this mulligan here from Bunnyhoppor? Because this looks powerful outside of the Conjurers.
It does. I'm not sure if Apprentice Cyclone is necessarily a keep. It's a fine thing to do early if that's what your hand does in the mirror, but I don't think it's necessarily like a premium thing that you want to hang on to and be excited about doing early. Sorcerer's Apprentice, certainly a keep. Lab Partner, probably as well. I wouldn't hate anyone keeping Mana Cyclone here, but I think, personally, I would perhaps mulligan even a little bit more aggressively than this.
Yeah, it looked like Bunnyhoppor did just throw that Conjurers, and that's it.
Yep.
And the Spellwing, actually not a bad pickup whatsoever.
Yeah, Spellwing,
Oh, wow.
perhaps unsurprisingly, one of the highest win rate cards in the mulligan in a vast majority of matchups. Well, actually, perhaps surprisingly in some. I think a lot of players would be like, yeah, okay, aggro rogue, yeah, definitely. I want that arcane missiles nice and early. Face hunter, yeah, that makes sense, nice and early. But actually, in a lot of matchups where you'd think it is incredibly ineffective, like even against priest for potentially, it's like surprisingly high in the mulligan win rates. Just a good card to have on one.
So he's Lab Partner, though.
Yep, for sure.
He's going to be able to soak up a good chunk of damage. Jarla does just have Solarian now on 2,
I will crush your delusions of
if he wants. It looks good to me as well, this Spellwing. Then the Sorcerer's Apprentice and 1 Thief for turn 3 for Jarla, if he wants to go for it above the Intellect, which means it could open up a lot of early aggressive tempo play. But, you know, we've seen Jarla, in a slightly different matchup, of course, take a bit of a slower approach, so it is possible we might see it again.
Just taking a quick look at the differences in the list. Bunny obviously does not have the copy of Antonidas. It's kind of the unique twist that Psycho and Jarla are seeming to run here, but Bunny does have double Wand Maker. He does have 1 Conjurer's Calling. He's playing both Jandis and Raz. And then has that 1 random Devolving Missiles in the 1-mana spell slot that a lot of people do like to run alongside fairly standard stuff everywhere else. Just double Ray of Frost, double Magic Trick, double Primordial Studies as the other 1-cost spells.
Yeah, pretty similar overall. Nothing too crazy difference-wise. Do see Jarla is going to go for that Intellect, so is going to take it just a little bit slower. Did have some options there with just having the ability to Ray of Frost away the board as well, with the help of the Apprentice. But
I think you see Jarla there as well, deliberately taking what I would describe as an inefficient trade there, just because of the threat of Devolving Missiles, which is naturally in Bunnyhoppor's deck, just making sure he does bank that prime in his deck by trading it into the 2/2 instead of the 1/2. So I think the 1/2 there, like, it's spell damage, so trading into it is better against Cram Session, it's better against lots of various spells that can be used as removal later on, it's better to get it off the board so you're not dealing with Raz later on. It's also just better because it's a 1/2 and it's a value trade, right? That's just fundamental Hearthstone. So I think Jarla very deliberately there is just throwing away his Astromancer instead.
And again, just the ever-present question when anyone is piloting this deck is, when do you go off? Because this turn also looks like it could be potentially very, very powerful. But Jarla is not going to go for the Apprentice quite yet. Going to take a look with the Magic Trick and probably follow up with this 1 Thief just to see if he can get anything else to help. Just maybe draw into a Cyclone or really make this Apprentice go nuts with an Evocation, potentially.
Yeah, agreed.
I never hate Learn Draconic, although, of course, Cram Session very powerful in general.
Works against
But Learn Draconic is a nice bonus you can get in this mage list, honestly.
Wow, okay, that was the one I was not expecting whatsoever. Interesting.
This does open up.
Jarla's a get baited by Potion Gamer, Raven. The more you
does
know.
Open up an interesting turn next turn, right? Because he can go off with Sorcerers next turn and retain a Sorcerers.
Sure. Yes, that's very, very true.
It's just an
That is
interesting,
true.
like, wait, can you just have best of both worlds with this play? I think you can.
That is true. He doesn't actually have any real payoff for the pop-off right now, though, right? Like, he would just be emptying his hand of basically all playable cards and not getting his giant cheap enough to actually play it that turn. Still would seem a bit weird to me, but we'll see.
Well, he doesn't have to do it. It's just it's an option now because, for example, if Bunnyhoppor decides to go off this turn, then Jarla might have to respond, and why not respond and keep an apprentice?
Fair.
And Bunnyhopper's going a bit nuts this turn. Oh. Do you like Mozaki?
Not particularly, no.
No, really. I've lost to this a fair few times when it's been discovered as a pick because it's not something you generally plan for, and then it comes down with a lot of generated spells, and you're like,
Right.
oh, how do I kill this? Because the health is the big issue for me.
Yeah, I think in general those are three fairly mediocre options. There was a pick of two slightly like high-rolly cards there, right? One of them, one of them was Mozaki, one of them was Khadgar. They both like have potential to do disgusting things. I think you just kind of take a pick in that situation. But this evocation draw from Jarla has absolutely rewarded his every decision this turn.
This potion could be great.
Is the potion happening, though? Like, aren't you more likely to just spend your mana on the evocation spells and drop your giant this turn?
Yeah, could be great then. See if it's nice to him, though.
Studied. Warriors of the frozen wastes.
With 3 mana
rise up.
open, it gets quite difficult for the evocation to be that bad.
Works against me.
Icicle Flame Ward is one off. Yeah, it might just be the Cone of Cold.
Oh, this gets him a Conjurers, I guess, and he does have Giant in hand. This actually makes sense. Right?
Sure, yeah, that's fair. I wasn't really looking at that. That's actually a good argument.
And also, he can, like, Giant Potion Conjurers, or potentially go the other way if he wants another cheap target for his Conjurers the turn after.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yet again, Jarla taking us on a journey of a very different game of Hearthstone than what we would expect.
Mm-hmm. He is going to be the second player to stick a giant this game, though, and that is a problem that needs to be dealt with. Because if this just devolves into, you know, make big minions, Jarla probably loses that battle because Bunny's stuck the first 8 damage, and his hand is just freeze your board, freeze your board, freeze your board, freeze your board. So he can just get to go face with this minion over and over again if Jarla just has to counter-develop into this. You can see the fear factor, right? Jarla played the mana reservoir and then went, oh, damn it, it wasn't just mirror entity. Now I have to think. No one wants to do that. He just ends up ripping it anyway. Could have got heavily punished by the Spellbender. He just ended up ripping it. I respect it.
I think he had to, because if he didn't, he's more punished by just dying because he doesn't play cards that turn, right?
Yeah. But yeah, there's a Blizzard, there's a Frost Nova, there's a second Blizzard, there's a Ray of Frost. Like, there's just so many turns of locking this board state out now for Bunny.
And that's the thing, right? Jarla, of course, can't know this, but we can see that the board focus just is not going to get him there. And frankly, he's too far away outside of a prime to actually do anything impactful with his hand and the deck in general, right? Like, there isn't going to be some crazy late game plan or anything because he's not going to get there. He's just, Bunnyhoppor's just hitting him for 8 minimum every turn. Funnily enough, the potion on the dragons, not the worst.
Yeah, he did end up with a pretty good minion for Potion of Illusion, it's got to be said. I'm trying very hard not to comment on how this potion was chosen, and it's just sat dead in the hand every turn ever since. Trying really hard, Raven.
Oh, you coming? I don't mind. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
I told you potion was terrible. This is a tough choice, though. Ray of Frost is the more immediately defensive play, but realistically, does Jarla need the evocation to actually win the game?
I think, like...
From what we can see, obviously.
Yeah, we can see the answer to that question might be yes, but Jarla has no idea that he's facing down 2 more universal board freezes at a minimum from Bunnyhoppor's hand right now.
Ooh, what if it's actually Mozaki into the Ray of Frosts here?
So I think it's Blizzard this turn into Mozaki Nova the turn after, and then you can potentially go from there if you want to do stupid Mozaki things.
Why?
Because it fully freezes on multiple turns as opposed to leaving minions up and available to attack. I don't know. Just seems clean.
What to do? What to do?
For me, the earlier Mozaki, with Cram Session, Arcane Missiles in hand, and arguably the Blizzard as well later, makes it so much more powerful doing this now. And I don't think there's too much of a fear of the 3/4 being a problem here.
Okay.
I definitely understand your point though, because Bunnyhoppor could have just had no minions attack him this turn, and now he has something. But I guess the point as well is, even if the Firebrand kills the giant, Bunnyhoppor just has a Mozaki, and look at his hand, right?
Yeah,
does that actually just win him the game then? Is it just is kind of ruined no matter which one he kills?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, if anything, like, my problem was the opposite. Like, despite saying I wasn't actually interested in taking this, I actually got too interested in protecting it. Because I would look at this the other way around, right? It's like, oh, maybe the Firebrand can kill the Mozaki. Well, then you still have a giant, and your opponent's at 15, right? So I think like fully protecting everything with the Frost Nova just isn't really that necessary. Makes sense to me.
I do see though, that's a big deal, that polymorph.
Yeah, it is.
Huge.
But board lock number 2, locked and loaded here for Bunny. Can drop it with the Astromancer if he wants for a bit of extra cleanup.
What to do?
I will crush your delusions of grandeur.
And also this means that there's a potential chance that Bunnyhoppor can go for the devolving missiles next turn to dodge this death rattle. If he can target the minions specifically. He doesn't have to, but it's an option because it is a bit of an annoying minion to try and deal with. But most importantly, it just has Nova into more stuff next turn.
Yep.
There it is, the big payoff. The one mana play.
Ping this yourself, right? Yeah, just ping it yourself. Play around the devolve to some extent. Ugh. That's pretty underwhelming. It's got to be said.
Oh, it says explode!
Someday I'll be just like you.
Instant.
Oh, well.
There's one thing Bunny knows. He might be a slow player, but he at least knows when there's no time to think at the start of the turn, and that is, like, it's a real point. Like, he actually fully recognizes that he can't just rope this turn out and then start. He drew Apprentice, he played Apprentice, he's just going to get on with the turn, and the rope will still appear at some point, but he is getting through his decisions as he needs to.
Well, that's it perfectly, isn't it? He might be a slow player, but he knows he's slow, so he doesn't have time to mess around.
Yep.
Even this Arcane Missiles is a little bit scary here for Jarla.
Do you cast missiles before attacking?
Just in case?
Yeah, there's like a ludicrously fringe out, right? Like, I don't know. Fine, you're
Frost
Frostnovering anyway.
Yeah, just play some cards, Bunny. I'm not even going to try and cast this.
This is what I mean. Like, he still just clearly doesn't have enough time, right? Like, imagine if he'd have actually waited before doing anything.
Rolling Fireball, going to clear up a ton of stuff. No, that's not all of it, right? No. Nope. Doesn't get to react to the devolving missiles, I imagine. At least from what we can see. Oh. Okay, that's funny.
Okay. Solid 6 out of 10, I'd say.
Flame Strike? Oh, okay. Potion?
How?
A one-mana Caligos? Come on.
Raven. How can we get baited by Potion of Illusion? Let me count the ways.
It's one of those things where if you're going to do it once, you just do it every time, see?
Yep. I mean, I think it actually is genuinely just all utter garbage, right?
Most importantly here, though, this could be a pretty big deal, because if there's a Conjurer's Calling, that is just lethal, right? Is it lethal anyway?
With combustion,
the combustion,
it's a million,
I didn't even see the combustion. There's so many cards in hand. That is going to be game number 3 going to Bunnyhoppor, and honestly, another game which is just full of odd scenarios. Like, what is this series of Hearthstone? Half of me wants to recommend it for people to watch. The other half thinks people will go insane if they try and watch this. We're just used to it.
Bunny's full screen was just a whole mood right there, Raven. Like that was my everything.
You can't prepare for matches like this. You really can't. Us as casters can't, and the players definitely can't, because even the simplest of, I say simple, but the mirror matches end up going crazy or go into weird scenarios. So it truly is one of those series that might well be talked about for quite a while. Bunnyhoppor only has this Burgle Rogue left, and we did see Meh not quite taking a win in the first game of the series, I believe, way back when. But it does mean he needs to take this win with it now to be able to finish this series and put us all out of our misery, honestly.
Yeah, he's got a couple of shots at it. He came incredibly close to getting the job done in that absolutely epic opener to the series. But I mentioned how, this is kind of the legacy deck for Bunnyhoppor at this point. He kind of introduced GM to it, and he's stuck with it ever since. His results kind of reflect that. I made the point in week number 1 that everyone else who'd brought Rogue seemed to be underperforming, and he was the only one with a positive win rate. He's carried that positive win rate all the way through, so he is now 21-10 with it overall, which is an extremely strong win rate. So he clearly knows something about this deck that a lot of players don't, because, I know certainly that I would not be able to replicate those results with this deck, because I have tried to, and I cannot. I cannot get results out of this strange Rogue deck.
And to take that one step further, I didn't even bother trying, because I know I definitely can't. So it is one that does baffle me, and will honestly continue to baffle me, even though I do see certain players, as you've just mentioned, get some good results. I believe that there's better routes to go, but who am I to question a player with the results of Bunnyhoppor right now? So we'll see how this one plays out, though. It's a bit more of a straightforward game plan on one side of the board, with Jarla not being able to change classes as far as I'm aware, but frankly, who knows at this point? So I do believe he's going to stick to a fairly straightforward Druid plan this game.
Yeah, slightly weird looking hand in terms of curve, though. Double Nature Studies with no ramp is quite often a difficult one to play. Obviously, it depends very heavily on what you actually pick up off the Nature Studies. Like, just hitting one Wild Growth or Overgrowth here will make things a lot simpler. But outside of that, Double Studies is a little bit trickier to navigate. Like to be Rising Winds. Additional
just for a backup card draw.
Yeah, exactly. Additional early game card draw that he can just use to push to Overgrowth before he runs out of time.
Run low. So many contradictions.
Looks good to me. If there was any other card draw in hand, I'd consider more the Crystal Powers, just a spot removal. But because he has actually none, I did like it.
He also then holds the discount, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, one of the funny things, isn't it, with the Druid Studies, is that you can't stack the effects, because the nature of them is that they reduce a spell, and Studies is a spell.
Yes, yeah. We've seen anything so far, it's that Bunny loves a dagger. So I'm going to get the instinct that everything I know is wrong, and therefore he'll play Secret this turn. That's my read on the situation. Ah, damn it.
There you go. Idiot. Stuck with the gut. The plagiarize is very interesting in the early druid game, right? I think if he hadn't have seen the studies, he might have considered it a bit more. Because the early spells they want to cast are ramp. So, with no minions on board, there's no targets for removal either. So it would have been interesting to see what would have happened with the plagiarize.
Right.
But I think with the nature studies being played, it's too much of a chance or a risk, I guess, of Bunnyhoppor just getting a random druid spell.
Oh my days. Singular 2/2 questing adventurer pass? Question mark?
So let's take a look. Jarla's druid list does play double bog beam. The speaker Gidra would kill that as well, along with a natural crystal power. So hard no, in my opinion. Although the potential payoff is huge.
Yeah. So the thinking is just like potentially you can go quickly with one questing and then get whatever removal spell is in hand out of hand, and then potentially go off with the second one then that sticks because you pulled out the removal.
Right.
But there's still various combinations of hands that will be able to combat both of them. Largely the one that Jarla has right now. But you also spend a lot of time interrupting their wild growth overgrowth curve by doing that on consecutive turns, which I think has some value as well. Probably not enough value to justify losing 2 questing adventurers for it, but it was something to think about.
Yep, and just in case you're getting a little bit confused, you cannot, or Jarla cannot, guardian animals this turn with the bloom in coin, as the nature studies reduction is still active.
Yes.
So that will not work, even though it looks great. Cannot achieve it. He could drop the Lake Thresher this turn, but that might be a little bit too much too early, as it would reduce not only his next turn, but also just maybe reduce the fact that he could guardian animals the turn after.
How curious.
And also as well, good to note that this rogue list, as well as any others that run Blackjack, do have one of the best answers to a very early guardian animals for druid, right? If they could just bounce some of the minions or one of the minions back, it does put a bit of an awkward next few turns for the druid player.
Yeah, for sure. Innovate was always kind of a problem against rogue classically anyway, just because they have the card sap available. But yeah, innovate that overloads you is even more miserable in a situation where they can blackjack stunning you back to the hand.
I wonder.
This turn's pretty awkward as well. It's either a questing turn or it's something being uncomboed this turn.
Could backstab his own 1/2.
Backstab your own 1/2, yeah. That's a possibility, I guess.
Oh. Do you put much stock in counterspell at this point in the game, or is Arcane Intellect too much of a steady source of card draw?
Yeah, I think Counterspell and Neophyte have kind of missed their calling already. Whereas you want to drop them down to disrupt wild growth overgrowth turns, which Bunnyhoppor is taking it here. He can't do that anymore. If there were wild growth and overgrowth, they would have both been played by the time he's actually able to play that counterspell. So yeah, I like the resources overall. The Arcane Intellect.
It's an interesting point though, isn't it? Because if there's an overgrowth this turn, then the questing lives. If the question gets dealt with, then maybe the overgrowth gets delayed, in which spell could be played.
Yeah, sure. Worth thinking about.
Yeah.
Good point.
I'm not saying it's a sure thing, but it's just funny that it's the threat turn into the overgrowth turn with then a backup afterwards.
Yeah.
But again, I think card draw is something we've seen Bunnyhoppor suffer from, or this deck suffer from in general.
No, I take it all back. That's nonsense. Because Overgrowth would have been played on the previous turn if it's in hand, because it would have been discounted by Nature Studies. So you would have seen it already. So you're already ruling that out. It's just not in the hand.
Touche.
Sands of time run low.
Jarla probably just pretty happy, honestly, with that turn. Just killing off the questing number 1, and also still leaving him fully open to be able to guardian animals next turn.
Yeah, especially that when he cast the spell, he didn't see Dirty Tricks go off. That made him even happier because then he learned that it was plagiarize, and he'd given a pretty ineffective plagiarize over to the opponent there as well, which was his fear on the previous turn. Ended up just being a hero power pass turn, but that really didn't give him any information about the game state, about what secret was in play, about what he needed to be doing going forward. So just had to fire out the Bog Beam there and got the good news that it was probably the best secret for him in that scenario, which was just a very weak-looking plagiarize for one Bog Beam.
Yep. I was going to say there was a chance that it was still ambush because he's not played a minion, right? But
sure.
But yeah, it's still the good outcome. Hand over Rogue a Bog Beam. Going to feel pretty happy with that. And again, just makes his follow-up pretty strong because with the secret being activated, it means that this Guardian Animals should be a little bit safer next turn.
Mm-hmm.
Choose soon.
So what do you think of Bunny's positioning here against Guardian Animals, Raven?
Yeah. The Dr. Pharaoh cat positioning is a classic. I still don't think it's going to pay off too well. Although, quick glance. Yep, okay. Jarla is running 2 Threshers.
Yep. 1 Thresher, 1 Pet, 1 Runner left remaining in the deck. Yeah, whatever time Bunny thought he might have had to just sit around and gather resources and build up for a powerful pop-off turn, that's now over. The game of Hearthstone has started.
Yeah, and most importantly as well, Jarla, I think it was, although the Thresher's nice to clear the board, of course, reduce Shadow Step targets and so on, I think the Runner was quite important there because all you want as Druid is resources constantly, which is why they have so much access to card draw, right? And that's what I think Jarla will need, because I don't think he can take this game slowly or wait for card draw and wait for things to happen. I think after this Guardian Animals now, he needs to keep his foot on the gas and just keep pressuring Bunnyhoppor so that he can't have these fancy sort of value-based turns. He has to just constantly try and defend.
And this is a slight problem I've had with this particular build of the deck that Bunny plays, is that if situations like this appear, you feel very all-in on Blackjack Stunner. Because Bunny's another one of the players that's cut the Vendettas. So even if you were to like Secret Passage here, with most builds of the deck, you'd have opportunities to go like questing Secret Passage, hit Vendetta Activator and Vendetta, and then clear the Thresher from the board and actually start dominating again. Bunny just doesn't really have cards in his deck that kill a 4/5 from an empty board unless he generates them randomly.
Oh, I know Bunnyhoppor likes a dagger, but jeez, that's not what I had in mind.
Like the direct replacement, I guess, would be the 2 Eviscerates that you play instead, which, if you're going to end up throwing them at minions anyway, why not have them cost 0?
Are you a fan of actually like coin Thresher here or coin Runner? Coin 5-drop?
Our tombs.
Means he has to do like an awkward trade here, but he gains a whole extra minion. Or could he? Oh, okay, yeah. I was going to say, could he coin Innovate the Crystal Power and still have a 5-drop? He can, but is that then a bit overkill considering he has that Mount Seller in hand for next turn?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? He does have Mount Seller in his hand, so he could just like Hero Power the Cartu here and then just use the Crystal Power to heal up one of his minions and just call that done, and then still have all his like ramp still in hand with the coin and Innovate with the Mount Seller. That does still cost him a 1-mana spell, obviously, but I think the most valuable spells with an exotic Mount Seller are the ones that give you extra mana, of course. Then they unlock extra spells naturally. So yeah, I kind of like this line overall. This makes sense to me.
There was definitely a lot of options that turn, wasn't there? Though?
There were.
So
yeah.
Pretty tough one. But this is a, I'll say, slower turn now for a bigger turn next turn, which is what Jarla wants the payoff to be. Bunnyhoppor going up for the Quest Adventure now, though, where Bog Beam is going to be useful now, even though it's a reasonable plagiarized trade for Jarla. The Bog Beam being 0 mana for this Quest Adventure is looking pretty solid.
It's interesting he chose to do it this way around with the questing instead of just playing. Ooh, Sorry, instead of just playing his hand and doing it with the Edwin Van Cleef anyway, and then potentially following up with the questing passage turn after that. Kind of felt like an Edwin turn to me, so I'm kind of curious why it ended up being a questing instead.
This is insane. The payoff.
This is not an obvious decision either, by the way.
Yeah,
about
it's getting the max chance there.
Yeah, like what sequencing to do this in, whether you want to end with it on board, in hand, whether you want to leave a Shadow Step in your deck to go back in there and draw later. I think, like, mostly makes sense to just make the questing as big as humanly possible. I think that's kind of hard to argue with, but certainly things that Bunny would have considered, because Bunny considers everything.
Yeah, pretty important though, this questing, although 10-10, Jarla does run brooms as well in this list, so there's a chance. Obviously his hand is full. The overdrew there, the overgrowth. But there's a chance that this questing could still be, I don't want to say easily dealt with, but reasonably dealt with, I guess, from Jarla here. This 10-10 does not look as immortal as it actually is here.
First important thing of note, though, only one beast remaining in the deck. So the Guardian Animal's Bog Beam, for example, is just not a clean response, as you might expect it to be.
And currently, no way to draw cards for Jarla, which means he can't get hold of a broom this turn.
Sands of time run low.
Not seeing a Gidra line here either.
Yeah, I was just looking at that as well. I think this might just be Mount Seller.
If it was Mount Seller, it should have been Mount Seller about 20 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Yikes. That is a huge yikes of a turn, Raven.
It is, but honestly,
Okay, go,
I don't think
go.
I have a better one.
Go!
I never lie, but I never...
Hanar, prep, secret, go. Play things, end with Edwin. See what the 2 does here. 2 is plagiarize. Does he currently have a plagiarize in play? He did, yeah. He couldn't take the plagiarize, he already had one. So now here's the decision, right? Is it Edwin or is it more secrets? This is the break point.
Oh, Spellbend is an awfully good secret, though.
Choose soon.
But then, I guess, is he actually dying to spells? No, so make an Edwin.
Additional question. Do you stunner your own Hanar back to your hand?
Oh.
I supply only the finest.
None of those cards are broom, but this is the line now for Jarla, and he is going quickly to his credit, because he can generate all these beasts, and then worst comes to worst, he just has to attack with the Twilight Runner when he has some room in his hand and try and find that broom.
Rupla, not a bad start, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's all irrelevant if the brooms don't come.
Oh, yeah, but if he had Ironbeak Cowls, then the broom does very little, right?
Yep.
A little bit frustrating there as well for
Oh.
Jarla. There's the broom! Now he just needs a cheeky Cobra. Or 2. Saul's favorite.
Kill it. Forget about how you need a lot more power of Rush. Just play the Rush now and kill it before you draw any more spells. How much is this? 5, 10, 12, 15, 18, 19? 23, 24, 22 minions? I think he just gets there with Bog Beam and Crystal Power. But definitely with the Gidra he does, yeah. Damn, he actually killed this board?
Wait, how's he count a 12-12?
No, I was just focused on dealing with the questing adventure.
Oh, right! I was sat there going, well, Saul's just said he thinks he gets there. Then he said, wait,
I mean, he's
he actually
alive,
deals with this
right?
board? And I was sat
Yeah,
there going,
Too full.
how is he dealing 12?
He's alive, right?
Yes,
like that's
yes, I'm with
factor
you.
number one.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
kills the questing, he's alive.
I supply
Look,
only
at this
the
point in the day,
finest
Saul, you can't be saying things like that to me and not expect me to just believe you.
Fair enough. It was more ambiguous than it needed to be. I'll give you that. Stop!
like,
I hate
oh
this
my-
card so much, Raven.
Yeah, with the right ball control. With the right Bunnyhopper's drawing through his deck, he might want some extra cards in there. But yes, this does look like a mirror of what happened last.
Yeah. Did we just learn that if you plagiarize a card, that card is just on the same seed as the one that your opponent had? It just has the exact same outcome?
Maybe. I'll have to put the test. Nope.
Nice. That helps. Yeah, like, minor things that Jarla did on the previous turn is, obviously, like, he wants to play the Broom as late as possible because he needs a full board of minions to give Rush to before he plays the Broom. But also, there's the factor of how late he played the Broom also didn't give the Broom to his opponent because the hand just filled up with other random garbage first before the Broom went over, which is a very, very big deal here as well. You can see it's slightly awkward for Bunny to actually get max clearing power this turn, but it's all irrelevant. Bunny, who has played some hard-fought series of Hearthstone, probably will chalk that up as one of his hardest-fought victories of all time, even though it was only a 3-1 game score in the end. That was an incredibly taxing, grueling game of series of Hearthstone, to be able to get yourself through. So commendation to Bunnyhoppor for a great performance, and honestly to Jarla as well, because I think he also played great from the other side.
Honestly, not only difficult in game execution, right? Playing Hearthstone, but I think all of us were on an emotional roller coaster right there. I think that was emotionally difficult to get through for these players, especially as a lot on the line here. You know, every win is super important in this round robin stage. We no longer play like last year where it's like 7 to 8 weeks of round robin. It's not that many anymore, so there are less backup potentials of taking losses and it not affecting you as much. But we can see the results there and how they are going to look with Bunnyhoppor, Psycho, Casey, and RDU being our victors from Division A today, whereas Ball Control ended up taking a loss, and A-Rock got his first win on stream on Grandmaster, so a big deal for him too. But honestly, just a truly wild day of Hearthstone here in the European Grandmasters. I am struggling for words, Sol, for what today has been.
It's insane, right? Like, you knew we were going to be in for something a little bit special and probably a little bit ridiculous from the two of us because, you know, to be perfectly honest, staying focused and coherent and not just letting your brain go to jelly is quite difficult with the length of European casts that we have. And then we look at our schedule today and we have Viper versus Psycho and Jarla versus Bunny as our last two series of the day. Like, we kind of expected some ridiculous stuff to happen towards the end of the day, and that is absolutely what happened towards the end of the day. But I've loved every single minute of it, Raven. Any moment I get to spend with you is a blessing.
You too, mate. I will say, though, it is a series that I will not forget for a long time because not only, regardless of length of time we were casting, none of that really matters. For me, it's just what happened in that series. Every game was ridiculous in the best of ways. So, we've got a great meta at the moment, and yes, there's a lot of created by strategies going around, but it opens up to some pretty, memorable games of Hearthstone. So I'm sure everyone did enjoy watching that one way or another. But that is going to be us done for the day. So thanks all for watching. We hope you appreciate. We appreciate you watching. Sorry, I can't even get my words out now. My brain's so frazzled. We will see you tomorrow, but remember, America's is coming right up, and I'm sure TJ and Frodan have got plenty spicy games to cast themselves. So we hope you enjoyed it and had fun, and so myself will see you tomorrow.